Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 28 of the Knowledge Panel Show, the interconnect between digital PR and SEO. As usual, I've got a fantastic panel here. I have to say that we had some interesting sound problems just before we went on, so I'm going to find out more about them as we talk. So, guys, thanks very much for coming to the show. Really appreciate it. Sorry about all the technical hiccups just before we started. Before I bring in our producer and see if we blow it all up again, why don't I ask you guys to introduce yourselves, please? Luke, why don't you go first? Tell us about yourself. Where do you come from? What's your role in digital PR and or SEO?
Sure. Nice to meet you, DIXON, and everybody on the panel. My name's Luke. I'm from a B2B agency called Definition. My background, so I got into PR around 2008, into SEO about 2012, and I kind of specialize in the intersection of using kind of top tier PR to influence search engine rankings, pretty much. So that's kind of me and my background.
Pretty much bang on topic for the talk today. So, Leanne, how about you? Where do you come from? How do people know you?
Hi, so nice to meet all of you. I am Leanne Macriani and I'm the founder of LA Search. We're a digital marketing agency that specializes in fashion and music. And obviously, that's my cat. Sorry for the interruption. And yeah, one of the services that we offer are digital PR and obviously SEO.
Are you in LA now?
No, so LA stands for Leanne in the LA Search.
I
wish I was in LA.
All right,
I'm in London, unfortunately, but
not to worry. Okay. And Natalie, how about you? Tell us about yourself.
So I'm NATALIE. I'm a freelance SEO consultant. I work across all three pillars of SEO, so tech, content, and links. And I come from way before I worked in SEO, and before I worked in teaching, I have a bit of traditional PR experience as well. So it's a bit of a mixture.
Excellent, good. And finally, last but not least, Hannah, tell us about yourself. Where do you come from?
Hi everyone, so I'm Hannah. I'm the founder and managing director at Ciao Bravo, which is digital PR and content marketing agency. And my background, so very long time ago, I started as a journalist, focusing on broadcast and then online journalism. Then I went into traditional PR, and then went into SEO and focusing on digital PR and link building.
Brilliant. Thanks a lot, guys, for coming along. And the show's sponsored by InLinks, but don't worry, you don't need to know anything about InLinks whatsoever. That's all right. They'll be fine. So just before I dive into the show proper, let's go and find out if David's got technical challenges or whether there's
not at all. I reckon I've fixed the situation.
I think you have. It sounds much better.
There we go. Quick screwdriver out. Yeah. I just want to share that a lot of people listen to this show on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, other podcast platforms, but it's great sometimes to see people live to actually have your question being answered as well. So do me a favor, and the next time that you're actually listening to this show on Apple Podcasts, think, okay, sign up to watch live, theknowledgepanelshow.com, and actually say in the YouTube chat, I heard about this show on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. It'd be great to hear from you as well, and great to see you interacting as part of the chat. And I'll tell you later on this episode what we're going to be discussing in the next one.
That's brilliant. Okay. So guys, at the top of all the show, a lot of people don't wait for the 45 minutes of a podcast and stuff. So, and rather than make them wait till the end for one big tip, I'd like to sort of do it at the start. So, when it comes to digital PR and SEO, give us a tip that we can take away right at the top. I'm going to go the other way around now and start with Hannah and put you in the hot seat first. I've got a tip for a takeaway if people haven't got time to be here for the 45 minutes. You muted.
The usual. I always get that told. So I think generate great content, use great content, and kind of look into what is it that you want to achieve when it comes to using digital PR within SEO, and make sure that you do your research into what's working, what's not working, for example, competitors, whether that's your clients' competitors or your agency competitors, and make sure that you looking after anything that you create, because of course we love evergreen content that gets links all the time. Getting links in relevant websites, delivering or getting the right traffic to your clients or your brand site.
You're muted, DIXON.
So you're saying it's because we're all trying to protect ourselves from echoes, which I apologize to the audience. We'll get there. We'll get the hang of this within 5 minutes. So you're saying that the links are a big part from your perspective of digital PR. Is a large bit about link building.
Yeah, absolutely. Link building, a huge part, of course. Content goes alongside, making sure that it's high quality content used in the right way as well. And then the content and the links should then generate a very nice and relevant traffic.
So we'll dive back into that one, I'm sure. Let me just go on to Natalie and Leanne and Luke and get some tips from them before we dive in. Natalie, what's your tip?
So my tip is if you're running a digital PR campaign, don't just focus on content and link building. Work with the more technical side of the SEO team as well, because the impact of building links and or like link acquisition overall is to acquire link equity and then spread it throughout a site. However, obviously, if you've got issues like broken internal links and things like that, obviously, InLinks can help you with that. But making sure that when you do create your fantastic campaign and you get all those really good quality links, that they do reach the pages that need to be reached, and that you don't have those broken links along the way. And that it's especially when you're running a specifically really evergreen piece of content that's going to acquire links over time. Keep an eye on those internal links and make sure that what your hard work actually reaps the rewards.
Which I guess is what the PR people are really bad at. They're great at making a big story and not necessarily good at doing the follow-up-y kind of techie kind of not so exciting stuff. It's two types of brain, isn't it? Really, sort of left brain, right brain thing going on, and we're only good at one of them. So yeah, it's a good tip. Leanne, one for you?
Yeah, so I would definitely recommend having a good tool as part of one of my tips. So in terms of when we do our digital PR, we definitely do keyword research to help with our content creation, to give some guidance in terms of what the audience are actually looking for, but also to look at authorities of the types of PR targets we'd like to get to. So what are the authority scores of those websites? What are the opportunities there? And a good SEO tool will definitely help in the right direction.
So it's all right. I'll say the advert for InLinks later. So apart from InLinks, what tools are your favorites for the keyword research?
So we as a team utilize SEMrush just because it does help with keyword research, and you do have the backlink reports that give you sort of insight into authority scores, things like that, and what competitors are getting links from, things like that. So yeah,
cool. Okay, and Luke, tip for you?
Tip for me: stop thinking about links. Start thinking about authorship profiles. Think about who represents your brand, what it is they look like online, what it is that people see when they search for stuff that isn't just your website or your social profiles. How much expertise are you actually conveying in the SERP would be my tip.
I love that as a tip, because it's I think increasingly prominent, out there in the world as the world becomes more and more about fake news going out there and just spam news and automatically generated news and stuff. I'm sure that's going to go into automatically generated press releases as well. So clearly knowing who's behind the content is probably more and more important than ever before. I mean, let's just dive into that. I mean, have you guys already started seeing AI driven press releases out there at all, or is that something that you think is going to hit our world with horror in 2023? Anyone want to jump in on that? Have you come across any, tried any, played with any? Luke, you were just about to dive in.
I mean, not press releases as such. I see AI generated content on landing pages, but I think it's pretty clear when it has been generated by a bot as opposed to a human. As we saw the other day, we've had another reminder in the wake of the helpful content update that AI content is spam, right? Now, whether you choose to believe that or not, or whether you choose to believe that you have an AI generator that can generate content that's better than spam or can't be detected, I don't think there's a substitute for the kind of expertise and authority piece, right? For users to know who's written it and know why what they're reading should be believed.
So, guys, does that mean that you know, on that bit, it helps to have an authority that you might bring in to do a press release at all? Hannah, Leanne, Natalie, have you sort of had any experience of that, or are you guys sort of writing the content and relying on the managing director of the company to be the face of that content? Leanne, sorry.
Yep, no worries. So in terms of the way we work, we have writers in terms of our agency in-house that works with the company. So again, it depends on what the PR release is about, what kind of message or story we're trying to tell. And it sort of ties into the AI conversation just previously. I think when you do have agencies out there and AI form content that's very templated, it doesn't stand out to journalists. It won't be picked up by journalists. So I think, you know, for us, it's the key and core of what we do is to represent the brand story first and get out their message and the story and something that hooks the journalists in a different way that they wouldn't see traditionally. So we work with the various team members in-house to get quotes and perspectives on the story and then turn that into a piece.
Okay, so you wouldn't necessarily have sort of Luke's piece there of, you know, making sure the author of the piece is, you know, internationally renowned. Perhaps I'm overdoing that a little bit, but taking that sort of idea to its extreme. A press release for you would be related to the brand. It wouldn't be, you know, signed by anybody on that press on there of specifically. It would just be signed by the company effectively. Would you say?
Yeah, so someone from the company that, you know, wants their name and story to be out there would be signed off by the press release. Otherwise, it would be our agency, but generally it's the company themselves.
Yeah. I mean, is that the best way, Hannah?
I think with experts and with companies directors or whoever, you know, is representing the process that's going out, it's about that person, that expert. And like Lou said, you know, you've got journalists, they do their homework. They'll have a look at who that person is, look at their link profile, social media profile, or on the bio page on the website. So having that expert, that's what gets the press release there very often, because we can, of course, offer comments, advice, and tips within the press release. But journalists have their own articles they're writing, their own directions they're taking, and they are not afraid to ask a question. So not having anyone in there, or, you know, having a fake or AI generated, is obviously, if you get the questions, you're kind of stuck, because what you're gonna do when journalists from national publication is asking questions that they need answering within an hour, for example, for an article. So it is the expert, the person that is within the press release, whether that's spokesperson or within notes to editors. It's about giving that person in there to represent the brand.
Okay. All right. Let me move on to another bit. And sorry, Natalie, just wave your hand if you think I want to jump in or anything and I've missed something out. But I want to just move sideways on and talk about the different. What's the same about digital PR and SEO, and what's different between SEO and digital PR? So what are the? I mean, I think. We talked. You already mentioned sort of links as a main a large intersect between digital PR and SEO, but what is the goal of digital PR and what is the goal of SEO, and where do you find that they overlap and where do you think they differ? I'm going to go with Natalie on this one. So, you know, what are the similarities and differences between these two concepts?
I think with digital PR, it's not just about the links. So there's so many other ways that it can be one of the KPIs of a digital PR campaign is to acquire good quality links. However, there's so many other things that do come alongside it, whether that's, you know, brand amplification. So, for example, if you've got a really effective digital PR campaign, you might not get loads and loads of links. However, you could get heaps of brand mentions. You could get lots of social coverage as well. You could also have a lot of people searching for your brand. So that's, for example, one of the KPIs or an additional KPI to a digital PR campaign, aside from links and coverage, could be brand search, for example. And you should never underestimate the power of it, because when I was in-house, no one had ever heard of us. But from some of the campaigns that we've done, they weren't massive scale, but, you know, appearing on radio, on the BBC News, getting some really good, nice links, Washington Post, that kind of work and that kind of coverage was, our search volume just it just increased, which was fantastic. Which then obviously, you know, it's got that avalanche effect where it can be continual, or it could be that you'll need to, you know, keep up with that campaign. But I think with digital PR, it's not just about links. There's so many other things that you could get, so many benefits from a digital PR campaign. And obviously, you know, if you're going to be creating really helpful quality content as well, as we keep saying, helpful content is key. Making sure that we've got that helpful quality content that can be amplified, not just at campaign start, but at regular intervals. That's, you know, that's gold. That really is gold.
Yeah, no, I think this whole idea of amplifying the brand is, you know, that's what PR is supposed to do. Traditional PR is trying to amplify the brand, isn't it? So, any other thoughts or on that that anyone wants to jump in on? Okay, Luke.
Well, I was just going to say that it kind of obviously serves different parts of the sales funnel as well, right? So you do have that PR awareness and credibility piece. But if I ever have a conversation with a prospect who rings me asking for PR, and I spend 30 minutes asking them why until I get to the point where they go, we need to increase lead gen by X% between now and, say, whatever, in 6 months' time, then the conversation becomes a different type of PR. I mean, for me, SEO is just a different type of PR. It's a subsection of it. But I wouldn't be selling PR to generate inbound leads. The days of people reading about blue widgets in a newspaper and then ringing wanting to buy 10,000 blue widgets are somewhat behind us. That's not to say there aren't niches where it happens. Like, we've got engineering clients where a particularly innovative engineering practice, for example, might genuinely result in an inbound lead or a phone call, but 9 times out of 10, it doesn't work like that. On the other hand, we've never run a PR strategy without an element of an SEO strategy, without an element of PR in it. So
yeah. Okay, guys, on that, what about headlines? In the traditional days of PR, it was, you know, before the internet came along, I remember being president of my students' union and the PR department, because you got a lot of PR departments in a students' union, you know, we're all about writing a headline, and the headline was really, really important. And then as I went through my SEO career, I found myself having to re-educate a national newspaper team because they were writing all these sensationalist headlines that nobody was looking for and nobody cared about. Has there been a shift? Okay, maybe a shift in sort of a long time back. Maybe it's already happened decades back. But, you know, do you still find PR people writing sensationalist headlines that don't have any effect for SEO, or do you think that that headline now always has some kind of SEO element in it in a good press release? Who wants to jump in? Hannah, go on. You can go.
I think you'll still find a good few that is great clickbait headlines. So I do think it's definitely there's been a shift and it's getting the right direction. But I think you also will have those people who will go like, no SEO, no digital PR, that's not the way, traditional PR is the way. And they will carry on the way it's always been working 10 years ago. So, you know, it's definitely not as they used to be, but I think there will be still some, you know, I do receive press releases now and then, and some of them are great examples of what it should look like.
And I guess a sensationalist headline is great for Twitter or TikTok or those
or
kind of
Daily
things
Mail.
as well, or or Instagram. So perhaps I should be not so quick to disparage any sensationalist headline if it's going to get that clickbait, and then people are going to tweet about it. I mean, what are the best sorts of press releases and digital PR things that you've been up to or seen recently? Leanne, do you want to sing the praise of one of your campaigns or something that you saw recently?
Oh my goodness, putting me on the spot.
Oh, I don't mean to do that.
It's okay. So one of the most recent ones, am I allowed to say it? I think I'm allowed to talk about it. Is a collaboration for a fashion brand that we work with called Boy London. So they've collaborated with quite a huge partner on a specific collection. And we have just finished that release. So we're good to go. We're about to, I think, press the button next week. So I can't mention too much about it.
You probably shouldn't if it hasn't got out yet. You don't want to mention it too much.
It's not out. But it's quite exciting because it's quite an interesting story of how the collaboration came about. And again, it's just nice to hear the stories from both sides in figuring out how one brand connected with another one and then created this.
So basically, it's a story that you're that's going out there. Luke, stories, good stories. Is that what you find works for you in a press release environment, PR environment?
Yeah, I mean, I suppose to a degree, right? It depends on the format. So yeah, if you're talking press releases, news is news is news, isn't it? I think I don't think a lot's changed since Adam was a lad. I remember one of my first mentors was a former national economics editor at Channel 4 in The Independent. I remember day one, he said a few things to me. He said, firstly, make sure your clients, are putting their heads above the parapet, saying something interesting and moving the story on. Secondly, look for the money and sex, because that's ultimately what's going to run as the headline. So that's kind of staying with me now. In B2B, there's not a lot of sex. There is quite a lot of money. And inevitably, when it comes to kind of newsworthy material, there are kind of some staples that are always going to work as headlines. And all you've got to do really is kind of log on to any of the sector pages on, say, the BBC's website, and you are going to see the same headlines rolled out again and again and again. Essentially, the same stories rolled out again and again and again. On the other hand, if you're looking at kind of more long-form opinion type pieces, those kind of bits and pieces, I'd say the keyword research piece becomes much more important, either because you're going to, say, pitch a kind of long-form piece at maybe a trade publication that sits behind a paywall, so you want to be able to syndicate and duplicate that content in your own site, and therefore you've got to be thinking about the headline and the kind of keywords in the headline, or because your own site has a very low authority, so you've got an opportunity to piggyback on a much more authoritative site. So we've used that tactic in the past, for example, where we've put small tech companies up against massive tech players, but being able to outrank the massive competition by piggybacking on the authority of the editorial site. So we'll write an article, for example. I remember one that comes to mind was on data center migrations. There was no way we could outrank like your huge US tech giants unless we got that article with exactly the same headline published in, say, like, I think it was Computer Weekly or something. And because we got that, we were able to outrank everybody, jump right to the top of the results stack on the search. Right. And the client was delighted. So it depends on the format to a degree.
Okay. Interesting. I mean, that whole keyword research piece is maybe worth coming back to, because there's no reason why the people in the room need to know this, but would know this, but unless you're sort of big Inlinks users. But we're also SEMrush fans, so we take the SEMrush data. But what we do is we now are trying to change that data. One of the things that we see about keyword research is that most of the data sets are saying how many people type in any particular phrase, but we don't see that as very as too helpful if there's no context. So if it's a house, for example, then if you want to buy a house, that's completely different to selling a house, to decorating a house, to painting a house. These are very, very different concepts because of the verb that goes before it or after it. And so we're then throwing all these ideas back into Google Suggest to try and find out ones that are relative to the existing website that's out there. I mean, how much do you do you rely on keyword research? I mean, Leanne, you talked about keyword research before and how important it was to you and to your world. At what point do you throw the keyword research to one side and say, yeah, okay, but the customer does this and the keyword research says that?
Yeah, I think, again, like I said, that sort of starts off our process to see,
Right.
some sort of guidance. So I wouldn't say we would do away with keyword research. Obviously, that's the sort of foundation of giving us an idea of topics, things like that. As you said, it does not sort of give context, though. So, it goes a little bit further than that. We do our keyword research as a base to have a look at what themes and topics people are looking at the moment. Are there things trending with that? In terms of SEMrush, I don't want this to be any SEMrush plug here, but there is also a content theme sort of tool that you can use to build content, to come up with headlines, to have a look at what people are sort of pushing through in terms of content regarding specific topics, themes, and industries. So again, just to see what's out there, you can use things like Bazumo, things like that, to see, what are people putting out there, what's getting traction and engagement. And then that, coupled with your keyword research, you can build a really good piece of content. And also, I guess we're all believers of, you want to write things that people will find and discover. That's the most important part. And so I think there is a key in looking at the keyword research to get some guidance.
So Natalie and then Hannah and possibly Luke, what about you? Do you start with the keyword research, or do you start with the idea as it comes naturally, or do you start with what other goals do you start with as your starting point? Where does keyword research fit in, Natalie?
For me, I think a lot of the time I'm working on integrated campaigns. So whether I'm kind of doing the whole thing, so I'm advising myself on which keywords to use and what we need to target and how we're going to be doing it, or obviously working with a team that's able to then say, we need to grow our keyword set in a specific niche or topic. So yeah, I think having that guidance of keyword research really is important. But there's so many other things that can be thought of as well, because I think keyword research is obviously only one part. Keyword research isn't always 100% up to date. Even when you're looking at Google Trends, for example, it's a 1 to 100. So if we figure out how a topic is growing, is only between 1 and 100, 0 and 100. So for example, if something's trending, say on TikTok, and you want to take advantage of that topic, and you want to create a really great piece of content on that topic, and then build in some additional kind of insights, grab some data that you've already got to show off your products, get a really nice quote. Keyword research isn't going to show how many people at that moment are actively searching in that realm. With Google Trends, for example, it's only going to show you what that percentage metric is, or that the growth. So I don't know, up 180%. Okay. So I think that's the data isn't always part of it, and the keyword research data isn't always part of it. There's additional pieces of data that you can use as guidance, but also a lot of it is number one, gut feeling, and number two, that creative side as well, because keyword research can't do some really creative ideation of some of the campaigns that we've seen over the last couple of years. It just doesn't do that. However, those campaigns, those pages have really kind of amplified specific websites on specific topics because of that creativity and because of that gut feel.
Okay, Hannah, keyword research or a different starting point, or Luke?
Go on, Luke. Thank you. I think definitely agree with Leanne and Natalie. It is a part of the process. I think at the beginning, with other research, definitely looking into and adding keyword research into the process, but then taking it through with what is it that is actually happening around us, and what's our gut feeling, or what's been working, what's not. So I think it's part of the process, but not one to solely rely on. It's lots of other elements that we need to look into to get the best out of it and get the best process in place.
Okay. This is all interesting to me because we've just launched a new keyword research functionality, and it's kind of like, oh, why didn't I sell this to the PR people instead of to the SEO people? It would have been a much better idea, really. Luke, well, I want you to sort of have your say as well. You know, keyword research, big part of your world, or not so much?
Yeah, it is. I mean, it comes back to format again, right? So it depends on what we're writing. If we're writing a landing page for a solution or service, or a blog, for example, designed to bring in organic traffic at the top of the funnel, happy days. Press release, less so. What I would say, though, is kind of re-emphasizing and echoing what Hannah just said, which is it shouldn't just be based on the available data, right? I'm working on the basis that, say, Google's keyword planner, right? Its AdWords tool will say something gets 0 searches if it gets fewer than 10.
Right.
Now, if I'm selling something that's incredibly high value but very low volume, and I'm getting lots of feedback from, say, the subject matter experts and my client that all their customers call it this thing, but Google Keyword Planner is telling me, but I get 0 searches a month. And I'm like, well, yeah, but it's still worth me going after because I have a hunch and some very good authority that even if it's 2 or 3 people searching a month, if I get one of those conversions, if I get that traffic and something does convert, then I've paid for myself for the next 10 years. Which has happened before, right? Like, so you can't just rely on that.
No, and I think Google is very much moved towards trying to plan in sort of slightly broader concepts. So it doesn't matter whether you type in house or home, it's the same thing, and Google knows it's the same thing, and is trying to get to the same underlying piece of information quite often. In fact, house and home is an example. If you type in home insurance into Google, you're going to get house insurance or vice versa in the results. So it's quite clear that Google understands those two are the same concepts, I think. So that's fine. That's all pretty interesting. So what about the clashes between the SEOs and the PR people? Where does that come? When does well, you can decide whether you're an SEO or a PR person when you're answering the question, but when does the other side of the funnel get most riled, do you think? Who's going to go in? Leanne, you're smiling.
Yeah, so I do have experience with this. So my background is predominantly SEO. And so I am in favor of SEO. However, now that we offer digital PR as a service, I've learned to, as we mentioned before, it sort of ties into when does SEO dictate and where does PR start. So it's sort of finding that middle ground where you allow creatives to be creative and remember why PR is being done, and sort of giving way. So I guess it depends on the situation, really. Where I've said from an SEO perspective, that doesn't make sense. Or you come back and you hear, oh, it's got picked up. How many backlinks did we get from that? Oh, is there no follow links? Oh, no. And then you have to sort of change your mindset and say, okay, just because there are no follow links, you're still getting the brand out there. It is an online presence. You could be getting referral traffic. It's still mentioned. There is value in terms of SEO anyway. And I think it's really important to remember that. And also, like we said before, not have SEO always dictate PR, because sometimes it doesn't work. It's about writing content people are going to read, and giving value, obviously, at the end of the day.
Great, thanks very much. Anyone else for any ideas of where they clash, where SEOs and PR people clash?
I think just to say at the beginning before I get started.
I'm not trying to get anyone into trouble here. I don't,
No, I think it's Natalie said that really well at the beginning. It's really just working together. The best results are when PRs, so digital PRs and SEOs are working together. It's definitely, as Leanne mentioned, the follow, no follow, or we want only DADR, this many, 60, 80. I think it's there where, of course, national publications are amazing. Getting a follow link from, BBC, who doesn't like that? But I think every brand and every client will have really big value in niche publications, which are not DA or DR 80 or 70. So having a niche publication talking about a client featuring a campaign or expert comment, anything in the space of where exactly the industry is, where the industry people are reading it, that's the customers are there, that's a massive value which can get overlooked if we all focus on only this, certain metrics.
Yeah, I guess the more you choose the metrics at the start, the easier, the harder it is to stick with them, because the successes aren't exactly the ones that you envisaged in the first place.
Yeah.
Which does lead us to talk about. Oh, sorry, go on.
No, I was just going to mention with the ANDRs, I do like kind of compromising on average. So you kind of allow this perhaps lower DODR publications, follow, no follow, which are driving a great amount of relevant traffic, and the high as well. So it's not not excluding anyone or any publications.
I was seeing recently, I was at Brighton and in the PR track, Brighton SEO, and someone said that the journalists now are having the number of people that link to their articles as a KPI for themselves. And I think that, if that's true on a general level, is going to start changing the game, because it means that they're writing articles that people are not just talking about, but are linking to. And that's great for SEOs, I think. Is that something that you've seen out there, Luke?
I'd be interested to see that. I talked to the guys at Press Gazette quite a lot, and I've not heard that. You hear a lot about views being worked on as KPIs and things like that. Less about links to publications. I think the issue a lot of UK publications and UK newspapers are having is content syndication. Like we've seen a lot of reports from the Sun and the Mail Group about their content being rewritten and outranking them in the top stories carousel. And we're also now moving into the territory of seeing brands outrank news publications as well, which gives an entirely new spin to digital PR, right? We're sitting here today talking about links and things like that, but Google News gets billions and billions and billions of views a month. If I can get my brand onto Google News and outrank the publishers by writing better stories, more timely content, with more clear kind of expert authors behind that content, then I don't need to worry about links or brand mentions. I can skip out the media altogether and go straight to the source and drive a load of referral traffic. Now, genuinely, I think we'll get to the point where we end up upsetting journalists because of that. There's no way, but then that's another question, right? Because then you've got to then compromise with journalists. Journalists isn't going to feature your expert if your stories are outranking that newspaper.
That comes back to your original point, though, that the journalist is the authority behind the story. There's a good journalist and then there's an unnamed journalist. And
no, the journalist isn't the authority behind the story, man. Journalists move from beat to beat. They go from fisheries to defence to education to business to finance to back to something completely unrelated. Yeah. One of the best opportunities we have as digital PRs is educating journalists on subject matter. Because like cabinet ministers, they have no prior experience in what it is they go on to do. So you've always got an opportunity to re-educate them. Always got an opportunity to put your source as the expert, your subject matter as the expert, as the thought leader they can use. But sorry, just an opinion. Right?
Yeah, no, I think that's a very interesting opinion, because it's kind of, it depends how you look at what a journalist's role is in society and how that's going to, go through to the end. And if you're saying that journalists are on thin ice, then maybe they do need to have links as a KPI, because they've got to get people talking about their stories, not just reporting the news. I don't know. Have you got any thoughts on that, Natalie?
I hate saying, well, it depends, but I think it really does vary in terms of publications that you're targeting. So as Hannah mentioned earlier, with the niche publications, if you're working with niche publications, there's bound to, or in theory, the people writing that content are more likely to be a little bit more specialist in that area. So you would expect that. Whereas if you're looking at someone in a larger kind of more tabloid style publication, where people move from one desk to another, so they might be on politics, or they might be on lifestyle, or they could swap over depending on their interest, depending on if there's, we all move jobs, depending on how we're feeling at the time. Journalists are people too, and they can move from one thing to another, and it doesn't mean that they're always going to be a specialist. But yeah, again, marketing your client as the authority is the number one thing. And then obviously, you know, the journalist may come second. Again, dependent on the publication, dependent on their specialism. There are some really fantastic, you know, really niche journalists out there who have such passion for the topics and things that they write about.
Certainly, there's a few people in mind. So, Danny Goodwin or Rusty Brick, what's his Barry Schwartz, or you know, you know, there's very specific people in the in my industry, usually who are on Search Engine Journal or Search Engine Land, you know, who it's very clear to me, and I guess that's the same in any niche, though, you know, that those people are creating. They're not creating the stories. Barry Schwartz never creates a story. He just, except for the fact that there's always an update. Every time I see Barry Schwartz, he's saying that there's an update on Google because that's what gets him traffic. But I think, you know, those people are clearly very knowledgeable in their niche. And I, as an SEO, would like to get my links from those people because those are the people that are already seen as authorities within my world than, I don't know, than, you know, generic national press here. I'm not saying I'm going to object to a BBC link at all, of course. As Hannah says, who wouldn't, you know?
And there's there's also a really good way that you can work with authoritative journalists in your space, is potentially reaching out to freelancers who are specialists that do work for publications, working with them and pitching the articles in time, like together as a team. So really finding someone that's really authoritative in their space that could write specific pieces of content for those top tier publications. I've got a friend, for example, who's a fantastic disability writer. So anything in that niche, I could partner up with her and pitch something, and it's, you know, it's the best of both worlds then. But there's, you know, there's lots and lots of other ways that you can work with journalists aside from send them a press release and hope for the best.
Yeah. Okay.
Sorry to jump in. I'm really sorry, guys. I've really enjoyed this conversation. I have to jump off, I'm afraid.
No, we're at the end anyway. So, Luke, why don't you just, before you go, tell people where they can get hold of you from, and we'll do the same with everyone else.
Sure, yeah. B2B comms man, all one word. LinkedIn, TikTok. I like talking, as you probably know. So lots of stuff on there. YouTube, so on and so forth. But thanks for having me.
Thanks a lot, Luke.
Appreciate it.
Cheers.
Nice to meet you.
Thanks a lot. Bye-bye. Cheers. Bye-bye. We're on the same front then, guys. We are at the end time anyway. So Leanne, where can people get hold of you?
Same as Luke. So obviously LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, and you can have a look at our website. So it's lasearch.co.uk.
So LA Search is going to be a lot easier than trying to spell Leanne
Macriani.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
No worries.
So yeah, LA Search is great. Hannah, how do they get hold of you?
So our website, shaobravo.com, probably easier than my surname, but
sorry, say that slower. Say that slower, because there's going to be people on podcasts who can't see your surname anyway.
Okay, so it's Hannah BEDNAROVA.
So just for those guys that need it, it's BEDNAROVA is BEDNAROVA. Sorry, I have to do this every time I do this podcast because people forget that they can't see a screen.
Yeah, that's true. That's the one. But yeah, shaobravo.com, or I'm on LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram is a bit personal, but you know, if I like you, I might let you in. But that's me.
Thank you. And Natalie, what about you? How do they find you?
So you can find me on LinkedIn, on Twitter. My Twitter is __NCA. But yeah, mainly Twitter and LinkedIn. And then my website's nataliearney.com.
And Arney's ARNEY. So thanks very much for coming in, guys. Let me just bring in my producer again and find out what we've got coming up next on the next show, David.
Sure, we've got every guest booked for next time. The topic's going to be link building that works now. The guests are going to be Bibi Raven, Eva Cheng, and Debbie Chu. That'll be on the 21st of November, 11 a.m. EST and 4 p.m. GMT. Sign up at theknowledgepanelshow.com.
Brilliant. Thanks very much, guys, for coming along today. I really do appreciate it. And we'll get this up on podcasts and things and let you know where the links are for everything. But for now, thanks very much. And thanks to everyone in cyberspace.